Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, my entitled toxic in-laws invite themselves to my Christmas party and try to steal/take over my house. Here is what happened. The title story starts like this. I find myself looking at my husband a lot in pure amazement of how different he is than his parents. Now, I've only met them twice prior to this story, and one of those times was not even our wedding. He is the sweetest guy in the world, and to think that his parents verbally and mentally abused him his entire life makes me sad. He had pretty much no contact with them, and on the very rare occasion he sees them, it's due to the entire family having together for some reason. He has 3 siblings that seem amazing just like him and also barely speak to the parents. Except for one of them that, while not toxic, has the idea that his parents aren't that bad and should be included in everything. When we chose to throw a Christmas party and invite family, my husband made it very clear. Nobody was to tell his parents about the party. He did not want them showing up for one and ruining the party, but more importantly, he did not want them knowing his address. One of the best ways he found to get away from his parents was to not tell them where he was living. He once told me about all the things you could find out about a person just by knowing their name and address. It was honestly kind of scary. Back to the point, all the invites were sent out, and on Christmas Eve the house started to fill up with members from both sides of our family. It was great seeing everybody get along and have a great time. I spent probably 3 days in the kitchen preparing the food, and everybody was enjoying it. Music was playing and people had broken off into their own little groups for discussions. Then about 2 hours later the door opened and in walked my in-laws. The door was unlocked because people kept coming in and out to smoke and such. My husband was on them in a matter of seconds. Husband, you were not invited. Turn around and leave now. Mother-in-law, oh sweetie, we just wanted to see all our kids for Christmas. Don't cause such a scene and ruin the party. I could see just from this small exchange that they were gaslighting him and probably had done it for years, making him think that if a problem happened it would be his fault and not theirs for showing up uninvited. Despite wanting to, he didn't kick them out and mumbled about just avoiding them until they left. For those wondering, it was that 3rd sibling that told him about the party despite being asked not to. My husband left to, I think, go find his brother, and I walked away so I would not be near my in-laws. The rest of the party was spent avoiding them but hearing random things people were whispering. It turns out my in-laws were going around and telling people how my husband turned the entire family against them. That he was a troubled child and worried that he was hiding some big secret like a drug addiction or something. Basically spreading rumors in order to make people think that they are not toxic but my husband is the problem. Also, a few comments of me being a bad influence on him were of course thrown in there as well. The party did eventually end and people got into their cars or cabs to go back home. As the party thinned, we assumed that everybody had left, and then we walked into the main room to clean up and saw the 2 of them just sitting there relaxing like they didn't have a care in the world. My husband looked like he was about to blow and told them the party was over and to go home. They talked about staying for a couple of days, but husband promptly kicked them out. Then Christmas Day came and we had a pretty big problem. While we were celebrating with just ourselves, we heard noises and found his parents trying to break into our house by forcing a back door open. When he went to confront them, they ran inside and told him that he had to leave, saying that they raised him for years and got nothing, so the house was now theirs and we had to leave. They were dead serious and not drunk or anything, by the way. Then mother-in-law pulled her cell phone and called the police on her own son on Christmas. She started telling them about how we broke into their home and wanted us removed right away, crying that she couldn't believe she would get robbed on Christmas of all days. They told the police that we broke in to steal things to fuel our horrible drug addiction. I was stunned, but I guess husband was used to dealing with his parents being crazy by this point in his life. He was calmer than I ever saw him around his mother especially, and told the police the truth. That this was our home and he kicked out his parents after a party last night. They did not own any part of the property and in fact he didn't want them near him. Father-in-law, don't believe him, officer. He is clearly on some drugs and lying. Look how nice this home is. Clearly 2 people this young wouldn't keep it clean and nice. Mother-in-law, exactly. Their place is a dump and they should be forced back there. We both showed our licenses that had this house as our address, plus I had an email with my name in it for the electric bill for the house as well. This seemed enough to the police and they told my in-laws to get out of our home. They again refused and claimed it was theirs because they owed their son, that he was their property and anything he had really belonged to them. Keep in mind, we are both 35 years old. After one more warning went ignored, the police arrested them for trespassing and breaking in. While father-in-law went with just a small verbal argument under his breath, mother-in-law was a different story. She started screaming that she was being assaulted and telling people to help her. Also tried to sit down and refused to move, so she was really being dragged away by the police into the car. Enough so that she got resisting arrest added onto her charges. This was not the first time those parents have had to be handled by the police either. We pressed charges against them too, so they were not gonna be just let off with nothing. Now that they knew our address, them just getting to go home was not an option. So we filed for a restraining order as well and got it granted to keep them away from both of us. In court, they refused to listen to their own lawyer and just tried to talk about how bad my husband was. That he didn't do his duty as a child to give them grandkids, and also, again, they claimed they owned him. And that meant the house was theirs and it was not trespassing on their part. Also at one point, FIL got removed from the court because he kept trying to cut off the judge, which is not a smart move. They were found guilty of everything and for the first time knocked down a peg for their toxic behavior. After hearing stories of his parents, I always had in the back of my mind the question of it if they were exaggerated. Personal bias can really form a story being told, and my other experiences with them were short. After this, I could fully see how they ruined his entire life for a long time and he had to heal. I don't want to talk about his personal things, but I'll say that seeing them gaslight him makes some things make a lot more sense to me. I hope that I never have to see them again though, but more, I hope my husband never does either. And yeah, ripe stars, seriously, I would not wish these kinds of parents on anyone. To make it all worse, this happened on Christmas. I mean, I understand that some people are not religious or whatever, but still, for pretty much everyone, Christmas is kind of a special day, even if you don't celebrate it, and everybody knows that you should not do something like this, especially on Christmas. But anyway, the next one is titled Badass Grandpa Revenge. My grandpa is on my do not ever F with list. In any way, short list, he taught Shotokan overseas in Korea. He was one of the highest ranked black belts outside of Japan. I've seen security footage of some of his bar fights, they are legit. He was a personal bodyguard during the 70s for some governors in our state. He worked construction for decades, one of 2 master carpenters in my state, which leads to this story. During summers, I would work with Grandpa doing a lot of his monkey labor. Shingles up to the roof, mix concrete, sand floors, keep everything tidy, etc. He had been screwed over the years, as many general and subcontractors are, and as the years went by, his contracts for work would go more and more specific. In other words, payment on a certain schedule, new and unexpected costs, and how they are dealt with, etc. One particular job started out pretty normal. He is hired to build a new deck with a new patio and driveway patio for this guy, let's call him Crap Brain, SB. New construction, newer house, easy job. Grandpa had done work for him in the past, no problem. The deck is to be partly covered, 10 by 50 on the front of the house, 4 feet up with concrete stairs. Brand new door, brand new picture window, 4 by 8, and driveway is to be stained, freshly poured between the new deck and garage Grandpa built a few years ago. Guy was even going on vacation for a few weeks. We can get the job done in those 3 weeks if we bust it. So the guy pays 50% of the estimated cost up front, and was to pay the remaining 50% over the agreed time. Now, this first payment covered all material for the original estimate and paid us basically minimum wage for the hours we had put in. The next few installments would cover the subcontractor for pouring the driveway and the remaining hourly wages. 1 week passed, no agreed payment. Guy's on vacation, maybe he forgot to set up auto pay. Whatever, send him pictures on AOL email. And by the way guys, that brings back nostalgia. The original concrete stairs had been removed, new door was in place. Deck was framed out, but we didn't hear from Crap Brain. Weekend number 2 passed. Damn, no pay yet, but work needs to be done. Concrete guys are here for the new slab and stairs. Let's get it done so we can move on to new jobs. Subcontractor is a longtime family friend and distant relative, let's call him Timmy, does us a favor and pours and stains on an IOU. Sends more pictures on AOL, no response from the idiot. Week number 3, we have finished our work 2 days early. Subcontractor has finished their work, it looks amazing, up there on a nice hill. But we haven't been paid for this work. Grandpa finally gets Crap Brain on the phone. Grandpa, hey Crap Brain, how was vacation? Skip forward a few minutes. Grandpa is a talker and lived in a vacation state for a few years, which I suppose is Florida. Great, glad you had a great time while I was busting my ass here. Holy hell, it's been hot. What did you think of the work, Crap Brain? Oh, it looks great. We'll be home later today after tomorrow. We're having a get-together with XYZ. Grandpa, well, glad you're gonna enjoy it. Oh hey, seems like your bank didn't pay us on the schedule agreement. Crap brain. So? Grandpa, excuse me? Idiot. So what? I'm not paying you the rest of the money. Work's done. Tough luck, you old idiot. Grandpa, I understand. Grandpa, well OP, let's get to work. Oh, and get Timmy on the phone. Crap brain had that large garage Grandpa had built years ago, and the guy let us use to store equipment while they were out. First, the brand new door was removed and placed in the garage, and then each piece of the brand new deck was removed and placed into the garage again. Sadly, the posts were 36 inches deep, but hey, a 4x4 truck pulled those out of the ground nice and good after a bit of shoveling. Those were also placed into the garage. Window was also removed from the frame and placed on top of his pile. Deconstruction is much faster than construction after all. Timmy was rather unhappy as well about not getting paid, but hey, we found out that the new stairs we poured moved well enough across the new driveway and patio. And some bleach took care of the stain we put onto the patio. Sadly, it had a few chips in it from all the ruckus, and someone made the time to take a diamond saw and cut all the way through the seams. Sadly, it will now settle at an uneven rate, but all the material Crap Brain paid for, he got to keep. We even went into the garage in the evening and made sure his front door was locked. You know, for security. Even the few tools we needed for the job which Crap Brain paid for stayed in the garage. Fast forward 2 days, Crap Brain comes home and throws a crap storm. It had stormed and his AC had been running non-stop with the increase of draft into the front of the house. Of course, he threatens Grandpa with a lawsuit and the police, which just makes Grandpa laugh. A close relative was the assistant chief of police in our small town, unbeknownst to Crap Brain. We did everything we were contractually obligated to and paid to do. All the equipment, all the materials were in the idiot's possession. That is, after all, what he paid us for. Crap Brain blustered a lot, but it did F all. Fast forward a bit, no one in the local union will deal with the guy. Grandpa and Timmy are both pretty well respected and do a lot of great work around town. Someone from out of town ends up fixing the issues and does a bad job of it. Damn. So, update, GCs and SCs generally have to move quickly to the next job if they want to make cash, and the vast majority of the time won't have the funds or time to try and collect. We have no idea why Crap Brain tried to pull that, but since Crap Brain had paid us well and on time for the garage job, Grandpa ignored the inner voice. Edit number 1 for the questions and comments about liens. Solo contractors or subcontractors generally don't have the time or financial ability to do this. You're paid for the job you're working on. If you delay another job or delay getting someone new an estimate, you delay your pay and delay your business. It's cheaper to cut your losses and move on to the next paying customer than it is to try and collect. And the next one is titled, Am I the jerk here? I am 25 female and I have cancer. I'm not gonna die. We caught it early enough to know that I will survive this. Chemo sucks. I'm already sick of the G.I. Jane Natalie Portman Imperator Furiosa jokes after I shaved my head, but at least I can now smoke pot in a state that bans recreational MJ use. The other night I got phone calls from my sister and my cousin letting me know that our aunt, who is the most overzealous, narcissistic, self-absorbed woman we know, was planning on having the whole family show their support for my cancer diagnosis by getting everyone to shave their heads. Personally, I always thought this stunt was really stupid, and my sister and cousins are against this for a number of reasons. So my sister is a flight attendant and just got off furloughed, so she doesn't want to jeopardize her job by showing up to work with a shaved head when her airline has a very strict dress code. My cousin is 14, has waist-length red hair that makes her look like a ginger Rapunzel, and is already dealing with self-esteem issues. Her hair is the only thing she likes about herself, so shaving it off would destroy her mentally. They tried to talk my aunt out of it, but she wasn't budging. We think my aunt is doing this to get clout on social media, maybe even get an article in People. I don't know, like I said, she will make anything about her. So, without naming names, I made this post on Facebook letting everyone in our family know that the jig is up. The gist was that I don't want to see anyone shaving their heads in the name of supporting me just because I have cancer, especially when some of them were the ones behind the G.I. Jane joke. Instead of doing something that will make them feel good about themselves, why not do something to make me feel good? Like, oh, I don't know, drive me to my appointments now and then, or helping around the apartment or cooking when I don't feel like Hot Pockets again. Just something to make my routine a little easier while I'll deal with the chemo side effects. Hell, even a lemonade stand will do because this is America and our healthcare system is a joke. This backfired, and now many of my relatives, spearheaded by my aunt, are putting me on blast by calling me ungrateful. I should be happy to see that I have my whole family supporting me on my battle, barf, by doing this selfless act. They even went as far as to say that I was acting like a brat by saying they don't help out enough and what I'm asking for is too much. Even though they have done diddly squat since I got my diagnosis. So now my family, except my sister and cousin, think that I'm an entitled jerk who is using her cancer diagnosis to get more out of them. And maybe I am the a-hole for how I handled this, I need a second opinion. And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you think that the OP battling cancer is the a-hole or not? A user in the comments said, not the a-hole, you're the one with cancer, you're the one who needs the extra help, and guess what? Forcing a 14-year-old girl to shave her head is gonna do what? Having your poor sister who just got her job back put in jeopardy is gonna do what exactly? Play the cancer card. I have cancer. F off. Comment number 2, not the a-hole. I had cancer, so I'm sorry to hear that I know firsthand it sucks. They are trying to make you feel like the a-hole because they want to support you in the way they feel like supporting you and not the way you want to be supported. That's completely BS. Forgive me if I'm making an assumption here, but it sounds like you have attention monsters on your hands here. They are unwanted and unneeded. It sounds like your aunt especially wants to talk about this when asked, so people can say, oh, how nice of you to join her, so she can look good. It's crap and you really don't need it on top of this. Side note, I did 3 rounds of chemo and nobody warned me of the constipation, so ask them for RX laxatives. The next one is titled, The Best Revenge You Will Ever Hear About. I used to be a therapist. I trained hard not only in my master's degree, which I managed to get at one of the best programs available in the States after working my butt off in undergrad, but also afterwards in seeking out opportunities to get evidence-based training. I emphasize that point because in the world of mental health there is an internal struggle between people like myself who believe you should have proof that what you are doing for that specific person's issue actually works, and those who want to stick to theoretical models that sound good but don't necessarily have any research to back them up. The town where I live is like a ground zero for this problem. I regularly saw unlicensed therapists who had failed the licensure exam multiple times get promoted to supervisor positions just because they were good at making their companies money. I eventually got out because I could not stand the focus on profit over people, which is literally impossible to avoid unless you say F everyone and go into business by yourself. By the time I got to a point where I could have made that move financially, I did not want to be a therapist anymore and moved on. But before that happened, I managed to slam dunk one of the unprofessional people I had to deal with in a very satisfying way. This case was about a year before I got out. I was doing trauma therapy with several children from one family, meeting with each of them individually and sometimes together per their request. It was easily one of the most screwed up cases I ever dealt with in my career, and that is saying something. You see, I worked for an agency that contracted with juvenile justice and child protective services. All of my clients were mandated offenders or kids who had been removed from abusive homes. In this particular case, the abuse was beyond egregious, and I remember after the first session, where the kids really opened up and told me what happened, I had nightmares all night. It was so bad, but the CPS case manager, referred to from now on as CM, had specifically requested me because of my success with difficult cases. I had a reputation in my county for being good with kids and someone who could handle tough parents. Even though I knew it was gonna be rough, I stuck with it. My first clue this was not going to go well was at the initial family team meeting. These happen monthly with the family, CPS, and all their service providers to discuss goals and progress. You are ultimately working towards closing their case when they have done all their treatment and, most importantly, the kids are safe, have received all the care they need, and the caregivers have demonstrated their ability to provide an appropriate home and parenting. The caregivers, let's call them A and B, were selfish, unhinged a-holes. They denied the abuse, lied for one another, and regularly said horrible things about these kids, insisting they were little liars who deserved punishment for causing all this trouble by speaking up. The thing that was even worse was this team of 15 or so providers would not stand up to A or B. I got into this work because I had trauma as a kid and wanted to pay forward what my therapist had done for me when I recovered. I also knew what it was like to not be protected by adults in your life who should have been there for you. So I did not give a damn what A or B thought of me and stood up to their crap when no one else would, saying it was the responsibility of every adult in that room to put the well-being of these children first, since they are the children and we are the grown-ups. A and B were pissed as hell, and everyone else who had thus far allowed their ranting without so much as a squeak actually applauded. But that support for sanity did not last. Months went by and these poor kids could not make headway because their insane parents were not only not compliant, they were actively causing trouble for everyone on the case. You cannot do trauma work if you don't feel safe, and for these children, they were personally living weekly drama. It was that chaotic. A and B made wild accusations against most of the people on the case. They were a secret drug dealer, they were trying to molest their kids in visits, and they spat at them during a visit. One of the other clinicians got into a car wreck one day during work hours, and when A and B found out, they demanded she take a drug test. Until she did, they refused to comply further with services. Thankfully, her agency stood with her and defended her. She definitely was not on drugs, I can assure you, it was absurd. But the CM allowed all of this crap to go unchallenged. She was afraid of both A and B, and one by one she fired the people they targeted or made them so disgusted with her lack of spine that they finally left, until I was the only original team member left. Up until this point, these a-holes would not come near me because my reputation was impeccable. I knew a lot of people in the county and their kids loved me. I was the only adult in their life refusing to back down against A and B, and try as she might, CM could not get the kids to say what she wanted, that everything was much better and she could close the case. This is where the revenge comes in. So months have gone by, almost a year, and I'm getting burnt the F out, but I am hanging on until I can successfully close this case and one other. Around this time, CM brings on a new therapist for B, the primary offender, who we will call Smugface. Smugface was unexpectedly announced and introduced at one of our monthly meetings and immediately made it clear that she did not like me. Not by being rude in an aggressive way, but by being condescending. For the next 3 months, CM would try every meeting to close the case, and because nothing was better, I fought her every time. Before I had at least 1 or 2 people agree with me, but was now met with silence. It soon became clear that CM and Smugface were friends, and Smugface had been brought on to squish me out. She tried every meeting to imply I was not qualified, that I was stupid and had clearly misunderstood the children's wishes, that I was taking on a personal crusade against the parents. And she would do it with a crap-eating grin on her face each time. I was tired and it did make me mad, but I tried not to lose my cool and give her what she wanted. Because of the crap show caused by AB and CM's spinelessness, no one stood with me at all anymore. I was on my own. For cases mandated by the court, you usually have to attend court dates to testify to progress and make recommendations on whether it should remain open or close. The tension was building before our next court date, and CM was laying groundwork before through team meetings, emails and her reports to discredit me and close the case. In private, I felt like I was losing my mind, but I stayed in touch with everyone I had known on the case, kept my documentation like it was going to be examined by the FBI, and bit my tongue. I did everything I could to reassure the children that I would fight for them to stay in their safer placement with relatives, and waited for court day. When it came, Smugface was there with A and B, looking fat with satisfaction and, well, just fat. She smirked at me every few seconds, tossing her hair over one shoulder and chuckling. I pretended she did not exist and waited patiently to be admitted to the courtroom. When our case number was called, I filed in with her, AB and CM. Service providers sit in the back at this courthouse with members of the family, their lawyers and CPS in front. As we took our seats, the doors behind me opened and every service provider who had ever been on the case came strolling in. One after the other until there were no seats left and people were standing. Smugface's eyes just kept getting wider and wider until she was not so smug anymore. After the judge called everyone to order, the lawyers spoke for the family and then CPS got to give a report and their recommendations. Then the judge asked service providers if they have anything to say. CM, of course, recommended we close the case, weak, selfish wretch, and then the judge called on me and I deferred to Smugface, saying that since the case hinged on B's progress, we should hear her thoughts first. Smug Face stammered and sweated under the collective gaze of all these other professionals glaring at her. It was dead silence but had the tension of many buzzing bees, and said B was doing well and the case should close. She tried to throw in some more professional sounding jargon at the end, jutting out her chin and collecting herself a bit after seeing my deadpan stare. Then the judge turned to me. I stuck to my guns and expressed all my doubts in full, then reported on the kids and my recommendations. The judge, who was one of the toughest in juvenile court, actually stated to the room that she had respect for my views because of the good work she knew I had done with other children, and I was really surprised by this, but the best part came next. The judge asked if anyone else wanted to speak, and every single other person agreed with my recommendation. They called out all of A and B's BS one after the other, giving so many documented examples it was dizzying. All the while Smugface is getting stonier and CM is just shrinking in her chair. The final blow came from the children's court-appointed advocate who had never once betrayed any agreement with me in meetings. She said she completely agreed with my and others' assessments and could not see how CPS could justify closing the case. The judge calmly declared the case would remain open, told off CM for her being out of touch with the case, and sent us on our way. On the way out, I looked at Smugface and she refused to acknowledge me. I smiled all the way to my car, but the best was yet to come. The good news is the kids were fine in the end. A got caught in too many lies and finally went to prison, and I was able to move on to a new career. But before it was all over, we had another monthly team meeting to attend, and that is when it got a little cherry on top. I love to listen to music, and since I drove around a lot for my work, I had an extensive playlist to keep me occupied all those hours. I have eclectic tastes and will often put it on shuffle. The day of the last meeting, I showed up early, parked and unplugged my aux cable from my phone to go inside. This automatically shut off the music, but sometimes it would start to play again when I was not expecting it. Not thinking of that, I just went inside and signed in with the CPS receptionist. The lobby was deserted except for one person, you guessed it, Smugface. When she saw me, she turned around and she looked furious. Before, she would make a point of greeting me and acting syrupy and overly polite. But now she resolutely turned her back and stayed silent, so of course I went over to say hello. Only I didn't get to. Just as I sat down across from her, my music app came to life and the first lines of "Dirt Off Your Shoulder" by JC reverberated around the room. Bow down to the mother effin' greatest. And then, as though satisfied it had expressed itself, the app paused again. Without missing a beat, I shrugged and said, "Sorry," and then smirked. Her fury at the implied double meaning, sorry for the noise but really, sorry I kicked your butt, was priceless. And by the way guys, sorry for the hammering today, but the neighbors seem really busy. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please don't forget to like the video and leave some star emojis in the comments. Thank you so much, I hope to see you again tomorrow.